Dear students, welcome back to Intellectual Property Law. So that would be HOE 6019, and we continue with copyright law. So last time we stopped at literary works, and so today I'll start off with dramatic works. And so we have been looking at the various definitions of copyright and what sort of works are actually protected by copyright. So that would be page 4 from the UK copyright booklet. And of course, on the side, you will see that there are some interesting aspects about photocopying of books in libraries. And this comes under an exception, which we'll talk about later on. So when you talk about dramatic works, then of course, a dramatic work is different from a literary work based on the definition. And as you can imagine, a literary work is in writing, and of course, a dramatic work is something which is more of an action oriented piece, and it is capable of being performed. Now this could be either in a theater or in a movie. So for example, what would this cover? Maybe the Harry Potter book would be a literary work, but then if you dramatize it, you can then have a Harry Potter play or series of plays or a series of books or films based on the books. So that would be dramatic works. Then comes musical work, and musical work is interesting for some very strange reasons. Um, it's very important to understand what is musical work, and this would of course determine whether it comes under the definition and so is thus protectable under copyright law. So going back to YouTube, well, let's see something straightforward. This was actually the subject matter of a legal dispute. Apparently there was this company that claimed that they had copyright to this happy birthday song since a very long time, and they were claiming and charging royalties from anybody who used that song in movies or on television or in greeting cards, audio greeting cards and things like that. And then it turned out that they didn't actually have any such rights. So that would be the happy birthday song. So let's see, does it come without the ad? Yeah, so I mean that's a musical work. Now sometimes the problems that arise are when we try to understand what is music, and some of us may have some very strong notions about what is music and what is not music. Well, it doesn't depend on what we think is music or is good music or not. So for example, here is Tchaikovsky and the Swan Lake. Well, nobody can dispute that this is good music. Yeah, so that's Swan Lake, and that would be musical work. But sometimes you can have problems like you have this experimental genre of music, and so sometimes you have people who play music with garbage cans, and would this now be acceptable? So here is an example of such a sound. And of course, it's important to note here that you can't see the video. Unfortunately, we are online and not in a classroom. But basically, they are making this music and these movements with garbage can lids. I mean, so just banging these. And so, of course, even that would comprise of music, as in a musical work. So how does this work out? Well, with musical work, this has been a very long established line of action. You have collection societies, and basically all artists are members of that collection society. Now you could have a collection society in Estonia or in Finland, which could have members who are not only just Estonians or Finns, but even from other countries, other parts of the world. So all of these are now members of this collection society, and they form this collective of sorts. And now, well, they have their marketing team, and so basically all these artists have given rights to their songs to this particular collection society. And well, in case the artists are also, have given the song to a music label or something, then again they all come in over here. And now the thing is quite straightforward and simple. So you may have noticed, you go to a restaurant, the toilet, and there's some music going on, or you go into the hotel and you go on the lift and they have some elevator music. And all of this would be situations where, of course, somebody has to pay for this sort of music. Nothing is free in life. Now, it's not enough that you have bought a DVD or a CD or whatever, well, as a owner of the restaurant or the hotel. So what you would have to then do is, well, basically these people would approach you and say, well, we represent this collection society and we have, 55,000 artists as our members, and we notice that you are playing some of the songs that belong to our members, and in your toilets, or in the restaurant, soft music or whatever. And so here's a choice. I mean, even the same goes for radio stations, or whoever uses these things. And so here's the choice. Either we sue you and we are a collection society, so we are all against you, or else we have a simple membership scheme. You pay 100 euros a month or whatever, and you get all these 55,000 plus songs, and you can play them 24/7 all the time, and no worries at all. Yeah, so you earn some money by entertaining your guests, and our musicians or singers who are our members, they also get some money. Now, of course, this is a bit complicated. How much money who gets, and how do they calculate this? So again, they have this very cumbersome process. If you're an older artist, maybe you get paid less because, if your song is older than a more modern song, and then, different things. So maybe you would say, well, Madonna's songs are now played on, on the air and in the hotel or in the restaurant. And well, if they play her songs, and they have to pay maybe, I don't know, 10 cents per per restaurant, or every time they use that song. And let's say, they have to end up paying like 4 or 5 euros for using that song over a period of 1 month. You repeat it all over and again. Now you may think, what the hell is 5 euros? That's nothing. But this could be just one of maybe 1,000 restaurants. Yeah, so now that's 5,000 euros in just maybe a few cities. Maybe if you go across the world and you multiply this every time: Helsinki, Frankfurt, Stockholm, London, Paris, whatever, and then you can see how this really adds up to quite a sizable sum. Now, of course, Madonna will not get all the money straight away. It's a bit of a roundabout process, and there are, of course, other costs like staff costs and everything. But that's how the collection society works. Yeah, and at least in theory, it makes sense. So it's a one-stop window program. You want to use a song, you go to these people, you say, hi, I want to use a song, and what are my options? And in many countries, these collection societies are regulated by the state. Sometimes they are private. So it's a whole genre of things. If you're a law student, of course, it's interesting to note that some of these situations can give rise to case laws, because you have a monopolistic organization like a collection society trying to claim money, and this may be anti-competitive, because if you have a monopoly, then always there's a problem here. But these are things that can happen. Then you have, of course, other things like musical works, and I'll put up some parody videos here so you can understand how this goes. Usually, let's say you have a song, Nancy Sinatra, these boots are made for walking. So I'll put up both the videos. of hers, and so she sang that song, and very good song. And then 40 years later or 50 years later, Jessica Simpson wanted to sing the same song. So you just take rights, permission, and you can do that. So let me make a list here. Boots are made for walking, and I'll put up both of these videos so that you can see how this works out. And of course, it's straightforward and simple. Maybe Jessica had to pay some money for Nancy's permissions or whatever. Sometimes this can be a bit more complicated, especially if it comes under exceptions. So we're looking at parodies, and we look at two different types of parodies. For our Finnish students especially, there's a YMCA parody, which I'm sure will bring back sweet memories of the 1970s to you. And then there is Call Me Maybe, so something for our those students who are big fans of Rambo and the Marines and all that. Okay, so I'm putting it here. I'll put this up as well. Then there are artistic works. Of course, copyright is not just about literary or musical or dramatic things, but even covers drawings, paintings, engravings, sculptures, photographs, diagrams, maps, works of architecture, everything. Whatever is artistic would come in over here. And so, of course, this is an interesting aspect. Artistic works is a very wide term, and you have to be careful here because sometimes there is scope for misuse of such things. So an example of this would be, let's say, now this is of course something that comes up all the time. So let me put this over here as well. So this is where two different laws can sometimes mesh with each other and mess up each other. So for example, you have copyright law, which would state that copyright covers drawings, artistic drawings. And then you have designs law or patents law, which would cover the actual three-dimensional piece of work. So for example, let's say a pen like this. Now, how would you get protection for this pen? Well, it's simple, right? This is a pen, and so if it has design features, and we look at designs when we are studying them later on. So I can get registration 25 years, or if it's something very fancy, the way it works, then maybe a patent is 20 years from date of application of the patent. So limited period of time. But what if you have a blueprint drawing of a pen? Now, engineering drawing, and I'll put up an engineering drawing over there in Moodle as well. So now you don't have a three-dimensional object, but rather you have an, let's say now you have a pen over here, and so you have all of these drawing aspects, which would maybe state something. And let's look at some aspects here. Now, of course, this may not seem very interesting, but this is now, let's say, a drawing by an engineer who has come up with all the dimensions, all the parts that need to be put in, what are their lengths, and things like that. And of course, even maybe some special features here for a better grip and all of this. Now, what I'm talking about is this would be what you would call an engineering drawing. All right. Now you may think that a toothbrush is something stupid, it just costs 4 euros or 5 euros, something even less. But everybody has a toothbrush. You should have. If you don't have a toothbrush, then something, you need to get that checked. But anyways, well, everybody has a toothbrush, and you're supposed to change them every 6 months. So we're looking at least 5 billion people on this planet who would be having toothbrushes. Okay, make it 1 billion, but that's still a big number. And so a lot of things like these sell, toothbrushes, or same like pens, for example. A lot of pens also sell. So when you have these simple items, you have technical drawings for them. Engineers draw them regarding the grip and everything. And then finally, you have the three-dimensional object. All right, so it starts off with a drawing, an engineering drawing. Now this may not seem very engineering, but I mean, this is, let's assume it is. And engineering drawings can also be very well drawn and almost artistic, and then they lead to this three-dimensional object. So now what would I do if I'm super smart? Well, this is something that happens every 10 years everywhere, in the US, in European Union, in Australia, everywhere, wherever you go. So there's always somebody who comes up, some big, brainy guy who says, well, I don't want to claim design or patent protection. I want to claim copyright protection for my drawings. So now whoever else is making a similar product, you would say, well, I want to see your drawings because I think your engineering drawings are infringing my engineering drawings. Now, this is a pen, right? I mean, this goes in a human hand and you use it to write it. And so they all have similar dimensions. You can't have a gigantic pen or a tiny micro pen or something. So, of course, same with a toothbrush. If a toothbrush goes into your mouth, it can't be oversized. And so, of course, you have a strange situation here where somebody is claiming copyright for the engineering drawings, 70 years from date of death of the artist. What the hell? And that's crazy, because that would also be unfair and wrong, because every time this comes up every 10-15 years, the courts have to then say, no, this is wrong because you have copyright law, and that's different from designs law. And if you were to look at, for example, the United Kingdom's Copyright Design and Patent Act, then you will see this clear-cut difference over here. If it is mass-produced and pretty to look at, it's industrial design. And if it is an artistic work, it's copyright. And if you try to mix these two together, then you have a crazy circus of all sorts of things going on. Then we have artistic works. And then, of course, there are some fair dealing provisions that can come up with artistic works. And so you have to be careful about these. Well, some of these fair dealing provisions can be quite weird. So I have some examples here. In fact, I even made a recent PowerPoint presentation for some other lecture that I have to give after I finish recording this lecture. And so I'll put that up over here. And that would be about photographs. So it's more to do with artificial intelligence. And you take photographs. So I use this phone. I have just one job. I just have to aim it at whoever I want to take a photo of, and hold my hand steady, press the button, and then the device does everything else. But still there is human intervention. So I am the photographer, even though my only job in life is to make sure my hands are not shaking. But I'm the human person. I'm the one who pressed the button. So that's me. So that's artistic work. But of course, what happens if this artistic work, this photograph, is taken not by a human being but by somebody else? And so you had this situation with a monkey selfie. The monkey took selfies of itself. A photographer put up the tripod and the camera, went to make a sandwich, and monkey made photos of himself. And then, of course, what is this? Well, this is artistic work. Yes, it's a photograph. Who owns the right to this artistic work? Well, that's a bit tricky because you're not sure. And all these laws that we have, copyright law or whatever law, are meant for human beings. So if you're not a human being, then sorry, it doesn't apply to you. So that's unfortunate for the monkeys or the elephants in the zoo who draw different paintings or something. But it can also have a problem for example, artificial intelligence, because even artificial intelligence is not a human being, and so you can have some of these issues. So there are some examples also given again. Dramatic performances within schools, and would they come under an exception or not? And a pop song and things. So again, you can see some of these aspects. There's an Obama photograph thing. Maybe I'll put that here as well. And this was a bit odd because basically what you had was a situation where somebody took a photograph of Obama, Barack Obama, the former president of the United States, and then somebody took that same photo and turned it into a painting. So you take the same photo and then you just do your computer stuff and turn it into a sort of a caricature, and then you paint it, and then you do all those things that you can do with your phone apps. And so the question that came up was, so what is this now? Is this something new, or is it derived from the old photograph? So you have all these fair dealing provisions, again some exceptions. We'll talk about them when that comes up. Then you have films, and of course films are covered by copyright, and that is very important because if you don't have copyright, then you won't be able to commercialize films. So I'll put in James Bond car crash, and the idea is to show you how in that scene, they didn't want some cheap computer generated images or something, so they did the real thing, and they took this super expensive car, I believe an Aston Martin. They took three of them, and they banged them in exactly the same way, and then they shot the scene from different angles using different cameras. And so you had three brand new super expensive cars that were wrecked and filmed from different locations and positions and angles. And so then you end up with this one scene which is basically worth several, maybe a couple of million euros, simply because of the way the cars were wrecked. So again, this would be a film, and of course films basically work on the idea of making money, and so they have to be commercialized. Like for example, the new Tenet movie, I heard it's not done very well. I've heard that they needed like 400 million US dollars to break even, and they just made 250 globally. Bad situation. That's why the new James Bond movie, they keep on postponing the release, because everybody's worried. This is copyright and you need to make money. Of course, there are theatrical releases, and so you make money from the theaters, and then later on, you make money from whatever comes on TV. It's telecast after maybe a year or 2 years. Maybe it comes on Netflix or any of those channels where you can download movies and you can purchase movies. So this thing can go on for a long time, and of course copyright would be protected here from the script all the way to the final product. Then you have typographical arrangements and some broadcasts and things. So I spoke a bit about some of these aspects. So there are performers' rights, and of course the question that came up was, Jimi Hendrix is a performer. What about others who may not be performers in the classical sense? One very interesting thing about broadcast is there was this London pub football match situation. It became a case, and it was very interesting because you see what happened was, you have a football match, so everybody's in the stadium, 25, 35, 55,000 people, so they have paid money and they are watching the football match. And so you make your money that way, but you're not obviously thinking big, because this match could also be recorded and could be transmitted live, for example, broadcasted live, or record it and play it later on. And if it's a very important big ticket match, I don't know, Brazil versus Germany, World Cup qualifier or something, then of course this is huge money. And so now you could telecast this live to maybe over 1 billion people. So that's a ton of money that can be made. And so you have these sports channels that earn a lot of money, and of course they give a bit of this, also a lot of this actually, to football associations, for example, UEFA and all these clubs. So they all have this arrangement. And so now here was a classic case. If you're a law student especially, you will begin to see how this can be problematic. So the situation was, this was before you had geo-blocking and things like that. So UEFA had this arrangement, and they charge money from customers who would download or watch the transmissions live. And so they had divided Europe into different zones. And if you are in the UK or Germany, France, Western Europe, you have to pay a higher charge. And if you are in Central, Eastern, Southern Europe, you have to pay a lower charge. And this is something that they had, I'm talking about 15 years ago, all right? So how this worked was you would get this card and it had a number on it, and this was the what you would type in into your receiver, and then of course you could watch the transmissions while they were coming from satellite. So a bit old-fashioned in that sense. And well, if you were in the UK, if you are watching this at home, a football match, then you have to pay a different price, different rate. But if you were a commercial establishment like a pub or a hotel, then of course you had to pay much more. So maybe £100 or something. And then if you are somebody in Greece, so they said, Greeks are poor, so Greeks have to pay 15 euros. Yeah. Now, there was this one woman in the UK, in London. She had a pub and she had brains. So what she did was she went on eBay and she got these Greek cards and, got them shipped over to her address in the UK. She entered the code, and now, surprise, surprise. This was before IP and all of those addresses and geo-blocking really became very popular. So this is before that era. So now in her pub, she could put these matches on. And of course, everything was in Greek and the commentary and everything. But, people go to the pub, they get drunk, you just see something playing on the screen. You don't really follow it, not after like 15, 20 beers. So, who cares whether the commentary is in Greek or whatever, it's a football match, you're drinking, what more do you want? And so when UEFA came to know about this through their agents, then they sued this woman and they said, what the hell, if you are in the UK and this is a commercial establishment, then you have to pay a lot more money than what you are doing right now. And so this was quite weird. And of course, what she fought on was the basis that this is the European Union. In the European Union, everything should be equal. Remember, you have roaming rates which are equal now. So you go in the European Union anywhere, so roaming rates are the same. So it's not a problem anymore. You cross the border, go to Russia, you get a shock of your life when you see the bill because you're not in the European Union anymore. And so she said there's no poor, there's no rich, there cannot be differences or discrimination of rates. And the European Court of Justice, the Court of Justice of the European Union, as it's called now, actually agreed with her and said copyright is fine, very good, but what's more important is competition law and keeping the European Union as a union. And so, of course, these sort of broadcasts cannot be charged differently. Well, things have moved on a lot now. Now you have geo-blocking and you have more sophisticated ways of dealing with these things. Of course, you can still have some problems. You are at the border between Estonia or Finland, or maybe on the sea, or between Estonia and Latvia, or let's say between Lithuania and Belarus. Yeah, and then of course the IP address is there, but sometimes you can get some problems. This especially happens in Northern Ireland or Republic of Ireland. All of these places where you are on the border, you cross here, you are in the UK, you cross here, you are in Ireland. So you can have some issues, but otherwise geo-blocking is now designed to deal with such things. But broadcast rights, of course, what I'm trying to state over here is that broadcast rights can bring a sizable sum of money for whoever is owning them. Of course, broadcast to the public. Yeah? Electronic transmission of visual images, sounds, or other information, and you can see the rest of the definition as well. Then comes sound recordings. So of course, on a CD, MP3, record. So all of these also have rights. And as I explained last time, you have these rights, and so of course you can make money by selling a record or a DVD, and for each DVD that you sell, you get some money. And then of course, when you buy a DVD, you don't get the rights in that song. You just get that physical DVD, nothing else. All right. Similarly, you also have air rights. So when you're on a plane, long distance plane, remember the good old days, if you were flying, from here to the United States or to Asia or somewhere, and these would be long distance flights, and then you have a TV screen in front of you, and then you can watch different movies and stuff, or you could go Lux Express, I believe, Talon, Riga, and then you can watch on TV stuff. And then if you go by ferry and you book the room, I don't think anymore now. Used to be earlier, but planes and buses. So again, you have these rides. Then you have cinema rides, you have terrestrial rides, you have satellite rides. So all sorts of things, more and more rides as technology keeps on growing. So, what is not protected by copyright? Well, works in the public domain. Yeah, so, for example, there's a song here. Okay, and let's see. So, it's an interesting song, and it's more like a war song. So, let's hear this one. Yeah, so now there's an interesting song from the American Civil War, which was from 1861 to 1864. That was a long time ago. Almost 150 years or something, 160 now, maybe even more. So, of course, this is not copyright protected anymore. The artist who ever wrote it, the singer, they're all dead long time ago. So, of course, this is now work in the public domain. If it is work in the public domain, then anybody can, use the song now. Nobody can stop them. All right. Then expressions over ideas. Remember Michael Jackson, all these zombies and things like that. So I've shared those videos with you, didn't I? Just to confirm, where is it? Train scene 1, train scene 2. So those are of course covered where we talk about expressions over ideas. An interesting aspect about this would be Independence Day, the movie. I'm talking about the Will Smith movie from the 1990s. Independence Day, this Hollywood movie. Aliens come and invade Earth and they destroy the White House. And I'll put that trailer up as well. Lots of trailers. Yeah. And of course, this became quite a problem because we were representing 20th Century Fox, and there was some Indian guy who claimed that this movie was his idea, and he had written the script, and 20th Century Fox of the United States of America has stolen his script. So haha. Sure. Well, not so simple. He could prove that from 1990 to 2000 he was living in the United States in Hollywood. Okay. He could prove that he had written scripts, and as a writer, he was a member of this Hollywood Writers Association, and he had written a script where he had described how aliens invade Earth and Earthlings fight back. And he had got this script registered, and as a member of these organizations, you write a script and then you publish it or whatever, or give it to them, and they stamp it and they say, yes, we have proof that you have submitted this copy here. So now again, there's something interesting. Number 3, he could prove that he had sent copies of the script to different movie studios, including 20th Century Fox, and he had courier receipts for that. Now that's a bit tricky because he could prove that 4 years before this movie, he had actually been involved in this story process, and 20th Century Fox should have been informed or aware about his activities. Now this gets really tricky here, all right? And then of course this became a lawsuit, and then I had to dig up all my old cartoon comic books and things. And our point here was, you see, there's expression and then there are ideas, all right? Now, Jules Verne wrote about the War of the Worlds, in the 1880s or something, and we've always had so many of these stories where there's an invasion and aliens come from outside the world, and then they do something crazy. In Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, Star Wars, Star Trek, all of the stuff is the same in some way or the other. So based on that, we were able to prove successfully that there's nothing special about aliens invading Earth, and it's the expression that should be covered and not the idea. And then there are of course copyright exceptions. So we'll talk about that as well when that time comes up. But who has copyright? Now this is very tricky from a legal point of view. The author is always the first owner. All right. So I draw something and well, let's say I draw somebody, I don't know, whoever. All right. So this is something that I am drawing here, some hipster. Oh, I hate hipsters. All right. Well, not really, but well, okay. So here is somebody. Okay, well, here we are. Yeah. Okay, maybe needs a bit more hair on the side, a bit more darker stuff, some nice afro style or whatever. Well, yeah, see, here we are. Okay, and let's make him a bit sleepy, just like how you are after listening to my lectures. And then of course I put in the name, copyright 2020. So there we are. Hurrah. I have an artistic work, and this should cover the things. But now you see, of course I'm the artist, and I am the author, and I'm the person who created this. I'm a natural person. Copyright law is very happy, and so well, I have copyright, and I can now sell it as the first owner to whoever, right? The second owner or the third owner. But things are not always that simple. Well, as an employee of Taltech, Talon University of Technology, well, I'm giving you a lecture. So I drew this during a lecture, and the purpose of this drawing is to show you what copyright covers and who's an author. Now, I'm not doing this because it's fun. Well, of course it is fun, but I'm doing this because I'm an employee and I get a salary for teaching you about copyright. Yeah, so of course in that sense we now have a problem. The problem here is that my employment contract, just like many employment contracts that you will see in your life, would indicate that when you do something like this that you are supposed to do during the course of your work, then surprise, surprise, it belongs to your employer. Yeah. So I may be the author, but sometimes the first owner can be your employer. Now, of course, a lot of this depends on what sort of an employment contract you have, what sort of work do you do. Maybe if you do some work at home, in your free time, then it's not covered. But if you do some work while doing your work, then it would be covered. And in that PowerPoint presentation, also about that artificial intelligence thing, code writes a code. Software code makes own software code. In all of these situations, of course, you can have problems regarding ownership. And this is a very vital legal issue. As a law student, especially, you can already understand this. If I don't own something, I can't sell it unless I have permission of the owner. Huge, deep issues that come up over here. All right. And of course, if there are more than one co-authors, then they all have rights. And then there are commission works and government related works. So let's stop here for today, and we will start with what rights do you have as a copyright holder or owner from next time. That would be page 10 onwards. So until then, have a nice day and goodbye.